Are you a chiropractor with a struggling practice, having a hard time finding and keeping patients? Is your staff falling short of expectations? I'm Dr. Scott Sawyer, and DC Trainings has the answers that you need. So tune in now and find out how. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DC Trainings. Today is a great day. We're going to kick off a new module. I want to thank you for taking time today to join me with our information and also for being a part of DC Trainings. There's so much information that I want to share with you in terms of how to run a successful practice and how to provide the best service for your patients. I mean, that's why we do what we do in DC, well, in practice as chiropractors, as chiropractic assistants. It's to provide the best care for our patients. And part of providing that best care is really laying out a roadmap of what it's going to take for patients to get from point A to point B. Now, let's talk about what point A is for a minute. Point A could be, in the mind of the chiropractor, or in the mind of the chiropractor, it could be that your patients are, you want your patients to come in on a wellness basis, right? They're looking for elevated health, or they're looking to maximize their health potential. And we want our patients to just come streaming in because they know that chiropractic care is going to help them to maintain the healthiest level of health. That would be one approach that we would hope that our patients come in for. Another approach is that our patients are coming in based on their experience in what I'll call the medical paradigm, where you really do the best you can to take care of yourself, but then you seek out medical attention or the attention of a doctor in some form when you're having a health crisis or a health challenge. And those patients are coming in, and we'll just use a simple example with pain, right? And they want to approach chiropractic care or to utilize chiropractic care to alleviate some pain or symptom. Either way, whether they're coming in on the wellness path or the symptom path, that's point A. Now, point B is where we want to take them to. Now, point B could be just pain relief. It could be, hey, I'm feeling better after an adjustment, and really chiropractic care is great for that. Or point B could be, that's that ongoing wellness lifestyle. Point B could actually be an ongoing program of chiropractic care to enjoy optimum health and a full capacity of health, so you can do what you want and have your body support you. So that's the point A to point B. Now, what happens in the middle of that is the report of findings, because whatever they came in with, how we lay out our report of findings really dictates where we're going to go and what will ultimately become point B, that roadmap. So today I'm going to show you, and we're going to start a series here with the report of findings module. I'm going to show you how to bridge that gap, to take the patient, regardless of whatever status they came in with, whether it was seeking pain relief, whether it was ongoing wellness, and get to shift their way of thinking about utilizing chiropractic care into more of a big picture. Now, I want to just pause and point out, I know, unfortunately, most patients come in with pain. I mean, if you go back to the very beginning where BJ and DD started, well, more specifically, DD Palmer, where he started, it was the first patient that came to see him was somebody who had symptoms. And beyond that, patients started coming, right? It was Harvey Lillard. He came in, he had a hearing problem. He was adjusted, his hearing came back, and chiropractic was born. The second patient that came in was actually a patient with cancer, and she was adjusted. Dee adjusted her, and her cancer cleared up. So yes, we have historically approached chiropractic care from a symptom relief perspective. But as we've learned more, as we've incorporated science and research and experience, now we know and we see that chiropractic care can just simply elevate a person's health and well-being through a better functioning nervous system. And that's really the point I want to make in the report of findings. I want to show you exactly how to help a patient through a paradigm shift. There's no better way of saying it. To bring them from point A to point B and to continue that point B with ongoing care. So let's dive in. Let me actually share my screen and let's dive in, and I want to show you how this works. we've just completed a great new patient series, right? In module 2, the whole series of new patients. And those patients came in with, whatever brought them in, but they now have a better understanding of what it is that chiropractic care can do to help them, right? So since they have that better understanding, let's use that as a springboard into bringing it even to a better level of understanding through the report of findings. So let me just share my screen, and there we go. Now, as always, as we go through our topic today, I want to just point out, because we're not doing a live seminar on Saturday, as we always have. Although what I found is that this is actually a better fit, because we're just going to launch right into an 8-week series of webinars to bring you the information in the report of findings. We will, however, have a live seminar for the next module, for module 4. So that will be live, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. But for this one, we're just going to dive right in and continue on through and get the information that you need. So let's, a little bit of background on myself. I've been a chiropractor now for over 25 years. I graduated from Palmer West in 1997. I do average about 150 patients a day. That's a big number. I know, maybe actually for some of you, it's not a big number, but for some it is. And I just like to take care of as many people as I can. But I will just tell you this, I'm in the trenches with you. I plan to be adjusting as long as I can walk. I want to make BJ Palmer and Dee Dee Palmer proud of the profession that they started. So that's my passion. And what drives me to get up and go to work every day is knowing that I'm carrying the torch for our founders and the people who built this profession from the ground up. And I ask you to join me in that mission. I ask you to take care of as many patients as you feel comfortable taking care of, and to spread the word of chiropractic everywhere you go, and tell as many people as you can about the beautiful miracles that happen when people get under chiropractic care, and then to share that through your chiropractic adjustments. So let's go for it together, and let's carry that torch. And again, thank you for being part of DC Trainings. Now, going back in, as I said, from a historical perspective on this, our founders, now it was interesting because, and I'm going to get into some more slides here, so I'll just jump ahead, but it was interesting because their vision of what chiropractic was not very different than what it is now, although now we've gone through so many different levels of development in the profession and levels of conflict where we've come to terms or come head to head with the paradigms that medicine has brought about. And medicine has gone through lots of different paradigm shifts since the late 1800s, when chiropractic was born. There's been lots of different paradigms or ways of thinking in medicine that didn't work. And yet here we are today, over 125 years later, and our principles in chiropractic are not only still stable and sound as they were written by the founders, they're actually being adopted by other professions in healthcare because they're so stable and sound. So there's many of our patients, they're doing some construction outside my office today, so I apologize for that background noise, but they've been stable and sound for this whole time, so much so that other professions are looking at chiropractic and saying, wow, they're really doing something right. Maybe we should start to look in that direction. And I want to just share a quick story with you, because this just happened this morning. I went surfing early this morning, and as I was coming in from surfing, there was another guy who was coming in from surfing, and he was getting ready to run off to work, and he was in a hurry. And he was saying that I'm going to take my nursing exam today, and he's going to hopefully pass the exam and become a nurse, a registered nurse, an RN. And so we started talking about healthcare, and I just gave him a little 2-minute commercial about chiropractic care and what it's like to be a chiropractor. And I could just tell he was so interested, and it really made him think like, wow, maybe I picked the wrong profession. And he even said, if I had it in me to spend that much more time in school, I would have loved to have become a chiropractor, but I just didn't have the time to do that. So, and I just thought, wow, that is really amazing that somebody, is so interested in helping people. And at the same time, I just turned that spark on so that he could be interested maybe someday in going back to school and becoming a chiropractor and helping even more people. in that capacity. So anyways, I just wanted to share that story with you. But let's talk about what happens when, because our module is on the report of findings, right? So let's talk about what happens when people start to get turned on to chiropractic. And the way I like to look at that is, you never know, BJ Palmer's quote, you never know how far reaching something you may say, think, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow, right? So where have we come? We've come now to where the bigwigs, the leaders, politics, medicine, world leaders are all getting chiropractic care. Here's Del Bigtree from the Highwire, obviously a very famous TV star and a very famous person, a social influencer, as they call it. He gets adjusted, right? So everybody's getting adjusted. Everybody knows the value of chiropractic care. Del Bigtree gets adjusted. Here's Klay Thompson with the Warriors and Maurice Spice. These are big time athletes, right? At the top of their game, they get adjusted. Well, of course they get adjusted. They want to perform at their best. Children get adjusted, right? And here's me playing with a child, and her mom, or sorry, the child's mom is laying on the table, and I'm showing the child how I palpate her mom's neck so she can feel and see what it feels like. We're planting the seed. Now, for those of you who have parents, you know we have big plans for our kids, don't we? Big plans. And you never know what they're going to grow up to become, what they're going to grow up to do, but you want the best for them. And so by planting these seeds, they are going to be able to reach their dreams so much better, right? They're going to have perfect health. They're going to go to a good school. They're going to get a great career. They're going to meet an amazing soulmate. They're going to have beautiful children of their own, right? They'll have success. That's what we want as a parent. We want our children to have success in their lives. So the next time you see a new patient, this is what I want you to envision. How much more successful will this individual be in their life by being subluxation free, by receiving chiropractic care and reaching that optimum level of health? Okay. So let's take a step back for a minute and just look at how we've come through our first two modules of the year, right? We talked about team development, and I have sort of a basic framework with DC trainings about what is sort of the ideal practice to serve as many people as we can and to really make a positive impact on our communities through chiropractic care. So in our example, we're going to talk about a successful practice with 2 DCs and 3 CAs. Okay, this is where we left off from that last section. Now, in that environment, here's the level of patients that you can serve. So the 2 doctors. Now, what does 2 doctors mean? Well, I'm going to get into that actually in just a second, so I won't give you the punchline. But we have, with this practice, we have 50 new patients a month that we can see. That's a big number, right? But we have 2 doctors, we have 3 CAs. We can adjust 500 visits per week in this environment. And our revenue should, as an average, should be about $40 a visit. Now, it may be more than that, that's fine, but we're just going to use a rough average, because with these numbers, what does this translate into? Well, it translates into $1 million practice that is stress-free and running on autopilot, right? A successful practice that's on autopilot, collecting over $1 million a year. So how many of you would like to collect $1 million this year? Well, it's possible when you educate your patients the way I've shown you. In module 2, I showed you how to educate your patients when they come in as a new patient. And then now we're going to get into module 3. I'm going to show you how to educate your patients so that they stay with you long term. So if this looks appealing to you, get ready, buckle up. Let's do it, right? Let's do this. Okay. So as an overview to the modules that we're going through this year, because again, I appreciate you tracking along with us. We started with team development. Let me use my mouse here. We started with team development, and then we went on to the new patient module. Today, we're beginning the report of findings module. In July, we'll be back for financial arrangements. That'll be our next live seminar. And then lifetime care will follow that in September, and then we'll wrap up the year with goals and marketing. So that'll be our cycle as we continue on through the year. Now, I want to point something out, because in order to keep going up the scale, right? So scaling up, as they call it, in order to be scaling up your practice, or scaling up your efficiencies, or scaling up your level of service, or even just scaling up your life and being organized and feeling relaxed and comfortable at the pace that you're moving, you must master algebra before you move to calculus, right? And I like this. It makes me smile to share this with you, because I took high school algebra, and there was this certain series of steps that you had to go through to get to the next level of math. You couldn't take calculus, for example, before you take algebra, because you learn specific types of formulas and mathematics. You learn that before you get into calculus, and calculus takes it to the next level. So what does this mean for DC trainings? What this means is that with what I showed you last time in the last module, with the new patient module, I showed you clearly how to educate your new patients to elevate value for chiropractic. Now, once that value is elevated, what's your patient thinking? They're thinking, what do I need to do, doc? You showed me why this is so important. You showed me how this subluxation is affecting me. I know how it's affecting my health because I feel it. And so now, what's the roadmap? Where do we go from here, right? So with that education then becomes that transitions into this increased value that the patient has for what you're about to explain. And that's important to note, that because what you're about to explain is a clear roadmap to bring your patient from point A to point B. So we want to always make sure that we master those fundamentals. In other words, educate your new patient in a way so that then when you get to calculus, which is the report of findings, everything's in place so you can lay out that really optimistic, positive, encouraging roadmap, and your patient will trust you to follow that road. Okay, so let's keep going. And right here. Okay, so to flip back for a second, I'm going to shift gears. Let's talk about the low ceiling practice, because oftentimes that's what brings a new doctor to DC trainings, is they're having a challenge in their practice and they need solutions and they want help, much like a patient. We would love it if all of our patients came in simply for wellness and said, give me an adjustment so I can stay healthy. But the reality of it is many of our patients come in with some kind of symptom and they want relief from that. And that's okay, because we're, as BJ Palmer said, attract the eye to reach the mind. Attract the eye to reach the mind. So I want you to ask yourself, if your practice is not where you want it to be, is your ceiling self-imposed? In other words, are the actions that you are doing on a day-to-day basis, is your routine, are your sequences, are your practice protocols causing a low ceiling practice? Are you reluctant to delegate, right? Are you sort of a lone ranger? Are you doing a lot of the work yourself and not really incorporating as much of your team as you should because you're fearful that things might go wrong, right? I understand, that's okay to be fearful that things might go wrong, but sometimes you've got to be a little risky in order to really make the jump to the next level. Next is lack of delegation holding you back? Is that lack of delegation keeping you in that low ceiling practice? Well, if it is, we're going to talk about how to change that. Are you wondering, can I work less hours and still grow? Now we're going to start to shift this into anyways, I'll come back to that. I'll keep going. So are you wondering that, right? Let's go this. So let's go to this page. A low ceiling practice translates to low new patients, low conversion rates, low patient volume, low revenue, and low vacation time. None of those sound good, right? So let's change this. Let's change this so that we can have a high ceiling practice and we can really start to get some control and traction and go in the direction that we want to go. Now, as an example, let's talk about vacation, because that's usually something that everybody likes to talk about. When are we going to take a vacation? When's my vacation? Where are we going? What are we doing? So that's a nice thing that you can sort of track onto and look forward to. Well, here's an example of how not to do it, right? In a low ceiling practice, the PDC takes a vacation the incorrect way. They bring in a relief doctor. The relief doctor uses their own style of practice. Unhappy patients leave. Volume drops, right? Because they're not happy with the adjustments. The other doctor's adjusting them differently than what they're used to and accustomed to. Well, the report of findings, they stop until the primary doctor returns, right? Because doctors, if you're the only one doing reports of findings, then when you're not there, They don't happen, right? Which means there's no new patients coming in on new care plans. We're going to change that, starting with this module. Practice revenue drops, right? Because you don't have any patients, new patients coming in. And so there's no new patients coming in, making new payments, bringing new income into the practice. And at the same time, the unhappy patients are leaving and they're not paying either, right? So here you are, you're spending the money for a vacation that you're all excited to take. And while you're on vacation, your practice is diving and your income drops. And yet what happened on the vacation? You spent more money to go on vacation. So the vacation ends up costing you much more even than the actual cost of the vacation, because things aren't going so well back at the office, right? So we want to make sure that we avoid that. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So another example of a low ceiling practice, which we can change this, but as it relates to report of findings, you can see on the screen here, it says report of findings appointments, half-hour appointments. Now I've done this, so I'm not saying that this is wrong. It's just that it's a low ceiling practice. So half-hour appointments occur before and after adjusting. So what does that mean? A lot of us, and I used to do this, I would have my report of findings before I started adjusting. I started adjusting at 7:30 in the morning. I would have a report of findings at 7 a.m. Then after adjusting at 9:30, I would have 2 more reports of findings after 9:30 before taking a lunch break, right? So we're doing it before and after adjusting. 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, that's 4 per day. That's only 4 per day. If you're doing things right in your practice, you have patients that love the results that they're getting. Well, every year, they're going to need to have basically what is a report of findings to restart a new care plan. So if you're looking at 2 report of findings in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, that's 4 per day. Maybe, that's the limit of how many new patients you can handle per day. And at the same time, you're going to have patients trying to come back in to do their care plan renewal. Well, you've got a low ceiling practice because you don't have enough appointment slots to actually accommodate the people that you need to take care of. So let's start to turn this around. Can your capacity for serving patients increase? Well, if yes, which of course it can, right? What's stopping you? Well, it's that low ceiling practice. Can your entire team deliver reports of findings? If not, why not? We're going to change that. Now, prepare for change. Ask yourself, can we become more effective? Can my CAs share in delivering the reports of findings with me? Can we share our responsibilities? Can I delegate things to ease up all the work falling on my shoulders? Well, the answer is yes, of course. The time is now, of course. And what does that equate to? High ceiling practice, high volume, high profits, a subluxation-free practice. So in this capacity, and I'll just share my own practice because I can comfortably in my office have 5 or 10 reports of findings and care plan renewals per day in a given day, plus take a lunch break and be home for dinner. Now, that's what I want to strive for with you, is to have that dynamic in your practice to have that high ceiling practice. Okay, so in the report of findings, we want to have high conversion rates, converting new patients into long-term care plans, which will bring higher volume and ongoing payments, which is, of course, translates into profits, right? So conversion rates is a big factor in your office. And let me just share this with you because this is really important. You need to be measuring your conversion rates. And in DC trainings, we provide you with the goals tracking system. And the goals tracking system allows you to punch in your results. You put your results in, and then it spits out your success rates for how you're doing on your conversion rates. There's 2 conversion rates that I want you to measure. The first one is the report of findings, meaning that for every report of findings that comes into your office, every patient who arrives for their report of findings is called one arrival. Then we deliver the report of findings. Every new patient that signs up for a full care plan, and that's not just a pain relief care plan or 5 visits because that's what your insurance covers. This is a full care plan, which includes both corrective care and wellness care. So they get to experience both, right? So for every one of those patients that arrived, we're going to measure whether or not they started their care plan. So it's arrived and start, or arrive, start. That's how it lays out on the goals tracking system. So let me go back and just show you what this looks like. And that way you'll be able to track this in your office, right? So here's our weekly report sample. This is a sample from the weekly report. And on here, we have let's just take Monday, for example. We have a report of findings section. On Monday, we had 3 reports of findings that were scheduled, 2 arrived, 2 started. Well, on the surface, that's great. 2 arrived, 2 started, right? But we had 3 scheduled. What happened to that 1? See, that's the question I would be asking. And of course, my team already knows that I would be asking that, so they would just let me know. Here's our stats for Monday. 1 of our report of findings rescheduled for Wednesday. So they came back a different day, and that was fine. So that's why we want to be tracking this real carefully. And of course, I give you the tools to do this with the weekly report. So use the weekly report to track your results, to determine your success rates, and ultimately to reach your goals for your practice. That's what that's for. And we built that just for you. Okay, so here's an example for my office, because I like to share how things are going here. I'm proud that I'm able to say I walk my talk. I'm not teaching you DC trainings because I was in practice 10 or 20 years ago and I'm teaching you what worked back then. No, I was adjusting yesterday and I will be adjusting tomorrow. So this is important for me to be able to tell you this is literally what works in practice right now in our current times and situations. So here's an example of our success rates in my office from April, just last month. So in April, we had 41 reports of findings that arrived. And of the 41, this is for the whole month, 36 of them started care. Now that's a success rate of 88%, which is great. Now I want to just showcase one of my star CAs because for Brenda, I'll just show you her picture. So Brenda actually is a star CA in my office. She does a lot of the report of findings. I do some, my other CAs do some, but Brenda is our point person and she is a rock star with reports of findings. We've actually worked together for 15 years. She's just a fantastic part of our team. And so I wanted to share some numbers for Brenda from Brenda's reports of findings, because in the month of April, Brenda did 22 reports of findings. And of the 22 that she did, and that's over a 4-week period, 22 reports of findings, out of those 22, she had 19 of them sign up for a full care plan. Now that's pretty amazing, right? That's an 86% conversion rate out of 22 ROFs, report of findings. So, and obviously she has experience. She's been a CA since 2008. So she's obviously, she has experience in terms of doing this. But I just thought I'd share that. And again, Brenda, I don't think Brenda's listening to the seminar right now, but huge shout out to Brenda. Good job, Brenda. Thank you so much for all that you do. And there's many patients that are significantly healthier because of the information that you share with them. So I'm very thankful to have you as part of my team. All right, so let's move into this section here, because this is really the essence of our module. This is what we're going to be covering over the next 8 weeks as we dive in deep into the report of findings. We're going to start obviously today with the preparing for the report of findings. Then next week, we'll get into greeting the patient and the spouse. And I'll talk to you about how, well, actually, I already did that. You already know how to get the spouse there now. You learned that in the last module. Then we're going to talk about the CA delivering the report of findings, so that doctors, when you're on vacation or when you're not in the office, your associate doctor's there, but your report of findings still will keep going. And we'll get into this a little later, but I want to just pause for a minute and say, for those of you who are interested in having an associate doctor work with you, which I think is essential. It's a fantastic idea, especially from the standpoint that we have a lot of patients to serve if we're going to bring the health of humanity up to the level it can be with chiropractic care. So what's important about this is that when you have an associate doctor, that associate doctor does not do reports of findings. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. There's certain things that the associate doctor should do, and there's certain things that they shouldn't do. If you have an associate doctor, their role should not be in marketing, billing, or reports of findings. Now, marketing translates to new patients. So your associate doctor should not be in charge of bringing in new patients. CAs can do that, and they're actually better at it. Your associate doctor should not be delivering reports of findings. CAs can do it, and they're actually better at it. And your associate doctor should not be in charge of billing. Your CAs can do it, and you guessed it, they're actually better at it. So that's why I share that with you. I'm going to show you how to actually train your team so that they're delivering the report of findings, and we'll cover that in detail. Then also reviewing the subluxation, right? Going through the details of what you found on the exam. We're going to talk about future health projections. And this is one of the critical, most overlooked steps in the report of findings. As far as I know, DC Trainings is the only coaching group that teaches this, the future health projections, and how to really get that correct. Because if you do it wrong, it sounds like you're being intimidating and insulting, and you really don't want to take care of the patient. But if you do it right, you can create a very endearing relationship. It's long-term. Your patients trust you, they rely on you, and they will follow through with your recommendations, even if it is long-term, okay? Creating the care plans. What does a long-term care plan look like? How does that translate from corrective care or from initial intensive care to corrective care to wellness care? We'll talk about all of that in this module. We'll get into insurance forms. So if you're billing insurance, you want to know which ones should I be a provider for, which ones shouldn't I be a provider for? We'll talk about that. I'll lay that out for you. And then we'll wrap up the module with the reactivating new patient report of findings, which we finished module 2, new patient, with reactivating new patients. So now you know what to do when somebody calls and says, I'd like to come back again. It's been 2 years since I've seen you. You know how to go through that now and to really reconnect with that new patient again, even though they left, a while ago. We'll talk about how to do that and how that changes the report of findings when we get to that section. So for today, though, let's jump right in and talk about how to be prepared for the report of findings. So, and in this section, I want to just point out quickly, because this the next seminar after this module will be on July 15th. That's financial arrangements. I highly recommend, because I mentioned a moment ago, who does the billing? Your CAs do the billing. So I highly recommend that you have your team come with you to module 4, financial arrangements. Have them come with you, because you don't want to have to train them twice. You don't want to have to go back and translate what you learned. Just bring them with you. They're included with your membership. You'll all get the information at once, and then you can kick it into high gear after just one training. So ask yourself, though, do you shorten your recommendations because you fear the patient might reject them? Does that ever happen? Could you communicate, could you recommend more visits from the start, right? The full care plan, and still see high conversion rates? In other words, could you recommend what you really feel the patient needs and not have it affect your conversion rates in a negative way? Well, today we're going to talk about how to give your best recommendations for every patient and how to create or maintain high conversion rates and a highly profitable practice. We're going to talk about that as we go through this. And here's a picture of me with my CA. And part of preparing for the report of findings means reviewing the file with your CA. In fact, there's actually a patient I'm going to be seeing for report of findings next week. And already on the x-rays, we saw that there's a cyst. It's actually a cyst in the bladder of the patient. Patient doesn't know it yet because he didn't share it with us when he came in, but we saw it on the x-ray, and he's going to be coming in next week for his report of findings. And I know that my CA, who's going to deliver the report of findings, needs to know about that and how to explain that. So when I prepare the file and I prepare my CA to go in and deliver the report of findings, I'm going to be pointing out to her, here's the subluxations. Well, I'll go through everything that you're going to talk about in just a moment, so you'll get that. But I'm also going to add a part where I say, notice this abnormality right here. This is a cyst in the bladder, and Here's what we're going to do about that. But I want to make sure that you point this out to the patient. So you're really going through it in detail in a way that your CA can give an educated explanation about the findings. So we want to make sure that we're prepared in that way. Now, CAs, for those of you who are already seeing new patients and following along, you want to ask yourself from that first visit, did I establish a primary concern with a duration of greater than a year with all the major effects on lifestyle? Okay, ask yourself that question. Did I get that? Because if you got that, and I don't care if it's a half-hour consultation or if it's a 2-minute consultation, as soon as you have those details, a primary concern with a duration of greater than 1 year, and you've got all the major effects on lifestyle, consultation's done. Like you're done. You've got the information you need to proceed into the report of findings. So that has to be our objective when we meet with a new patient and we're gathering the information. Again, preparing for the ROF, after the new patient left, we had to complete the file, right? And we talked about this in the last module, but I want to just review that because when your, your report of findings comes in, there's a completed file awaiting them, right? It's ready to go. So if they come walking in, you're not looking for paperwork, you're not trying to find that form, you're not asking them to do anything that was incomplete. You are ready to go the moment they walk in. And what is in that file? A completed corrective care worksheet or care plan worksheet. The x-rays are prepared, they're marked, the lines of mensuration are on there, their insurance has been verified, right? Their verification has been completed. With those done and in the file, you're ready to get started. Now, we don't have to walk in with the whole file. You can if you choose to, but I actually like to have my team walk in, and myself included, with just 3 things. And those 3 things are the summary of charges. Now, why do we want the summary of charges? It has what x-rays were taken, and it has the name of the spouse who was going to come with them. I have the consultation details and the exam findings because that shows what? The primary concerns and effects and the exam findings, if needed. And the third is the corrective care worksheet or the care plan worksheet. And that has what my recommendations are based on the studying and the review that I did of the patient's initial complaints. So those 3 things are ready to go for the new patient's report of findings when they return. All right, so I want to show you, well, I'm going to come back to it on the website, but there is something I want to show you, which is the report of findings checklist and the report of findings outline. Because for those of you who are learning this for the first time, you want to have some framework of, okay, what are the most important parts of this? How can I quickly implement this and then fill in the gaps as I go? And these 2 documents are the ones that are going to make that much easier, that transition as you're learning. So the first one is the report of findings checklist. That's a form that's filled out for each new patient, and it just goes in the file. So it's going to have their name on it and the date, and then you'll just check off the list. The second one is the report of findings outline, which that one doesn't go in the patient's file. That one I recommend you review just prior to going into a report of findings, but more importantly, review it after you finish the report of findings. Because when you go back and review the report of findings outline, you're going to be able to look at that and cross-check. What did I do? What did I miss? What did I cover? What did I do right? Where did I nail it? Where did it go wrong? Why did the patient say no? Why did their spouse say we have to think about it? See, if you go back after the report of findings and you're reflecting on how that report of findings transpired, whether it was a thumbs up, full start, full care plan, prepaid, or whether it was we're going to have to think about that, we'll get back to you. Either way, when you go back to the report of findings outline, you'll see where the train went off the tracks or where you nailed it. Okay, so I recommend that you look at that in hindsight, especially while you're learning this. But even, I mean, I still do it with my CAs. We just had one recently, and Bertha, who's been working with me for now 16 years, we looked at that report of findings outline, and she showed me where the wheels came off. And it was very obvious on there where they came off. So we looked at that together to find out like what went wrong here, and we saw it. So those are 2 forms that you want to have ready to go. The first one being one that's going to go into the patient's file. The second one's going to be an outline for you to study. Now, let's go through the reception greeting. So here's your patient walking in now for their report of findings. It's their second appointment. And unless they had some pre-ROF visits, it's their second appointment. The reception greeting by your CA at the reception is going to be very professional, courteous. So here's what they're going to do. They're going to greet the new patient and the spouse by name. Hi, John. Hi, Mary. John, it's great to see you. Mary, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for coming, right? We're going to escort them to the report of findings room. So we'll walk them in there. We'll let them, show them where to sit, have a seat. We're going to provide them with our report of findings, and which I don't have it right here on me, but we're going to provide that for them. Actually, no, we didn't do. Sorry, I'm leaning out of the camera here for a moment because I have my binder. I hope you all have your binders as well. What we always do at the beginning of a module is we open up our binders, which I'm doing now. So I'm opening up my binder and I'm going to put in my new materials. So this is the new materials, brand new DC Trainings, Report of Findings, Module 3, 2023. I'm going to put that in, but first I'm going to take out last year's materials, which is the Report of Findings from 2022. So we're going to take that out of the binder. That's old material and it's outdated. You've got the brand new, hot off the press, updated, fully current and accurate Module 3 Report of Findings materials. So we're going to put that into our binders. And we are now ready to kick off our new section. Okay. I wanted to show you in there, of course, is one of the materials that you'll need for every report of findings, which is the laminated our report of findings. So that's in your binder as well. Make sure you have this handy, right? Because what's going to happen is your patient's going to read this for a moment while they're in the private room, and they're going to read through it in a way that they get familiar with the subluxations again. Now, remember, when they were here for their last appointment, when they left as a new patient, we gave them a form, and that's the subluxation degeneration. And we asked them to read that and let them know that the doctor would likely ask them questions about it on their next appointment. Fast forward, here we are at that next appointment. We're going to hand them this, let them look over it in the room for a minute. And guess what? We are going to ask them about some of the things that they read about on that other form, but we'll come back to that in just a minute. Actually, and I should have probably stopped my share so that you could see this in the big screen, right? There it is. Got to have your binders with DC Trainings. That's important. And here is our report of findings. Okay. Okay. So let's continue on and dive into this a little more. So we have our report of findings, which we gave them. So they're going to take that in the room, or they're going to have that in the room. And then the CA returns to the reception desk, right? So now it's just those two patients in the room. Well, two patients. There's your patient and their spouse, if applicable. If they don't have a spouse, then there's no spouse there. That's fine. And I know I often get a question about what happens when the spouse doesn't show up with the patient. What do you do? We're going to cover that. Don't worry. It's coming. By the way, if you do have a question today, please raise your hand. Happy to chime in with you, answer any questions that you have. Just let me know, and we'll make sure to get your questions answered. Okay, so going back to here, though, the CA goes back out to the reception. Now, think back to that picture I showed you. The doctor and the CA review the file. Now, what are we reviewing in that file? We're reviewing the primary concerns and the cause and duration. Really important. We're reviewing the subluxations, where they are, and the phase of degeneration that the patient is in. We're also going to review the effects that the subluxations are having on their lifestyle. We're going to review the recommendations, which is the care plan worksheet. And we're also going to review what case type this is and applicable financial arrangements. So these are all going to be reviewed between the doctor and the CA before we go in the room. And this happens just right outside, right? We just take a couple minutes, or maybe not even a couple minutes. It might be 1 minute, but we just review those. This patient has low back pain. They've had it for 10 years after a fall in the swimming pool, and it's been pretty constant ever since. Subluxations they have are at L5. It's a phase 2 of degeneration, and it's affecting their ability to sit. So they've had a real hard time sitting, which in all aspects of their lifestyles, that's really affecting them. Their recommendations are over the course of a 12-month care plan. And actually, I'm getting ahead of myself because I have a script, and I'll show you this in just a moment. So we'll come back to that, and I'll show you that. But here's the key. I want to make sure that you're prepared. And by being prepared, guess what the bonus is? The bonus is if you're prepared correctly, then the report of findings starts on time. Now, I want to just frame this for you because this is going to be kind of our parting important note from today. Here's a patient that started from square one. They didn't know a lot about chiropractic care, probably, but they learned a lot about chiropractic care, most certainly through your education on that first visit. What comes from education is value. And in the modern medical world or healthcare world, there's two other things that came from that first visit that many patients miss out on when they go to other types of providers. And those two things are hope and value. Hope and value. Those two things came from that first visit if you did it right, which is really important, right? We want to make sure that our patients have value for what we do, because if they value it, they will listen carefully to our recommendations. They'll follow through with our recommendations, and they'll stay with you, and they'll be willing to pay for their care, right? What if their insurance deductible is really high? What if their insurance has a limited number of visits? What if their insurance doesn't cover chiropractic care? All of these are questions that we know people are asking, but when they value what we do, they will be willing to pay for it regardless of what their insurance covers, right? So with that in mind, what's going to happen is transferring from that new patient now, which has value and hope, they walk into your office with these high expectations. You know, where we left off, I'm ready to get started. I want to find out what's going on. I want to find out what this doctor is going to do to help me and how long it's going to take and how long it's going to cost. And I'm really eager, and let's go. I want to get started. And then they walk into a typical doctor's office, and they then sit in the lobby for half an hour with a bunch of people staring at walls or staring at their phones, uninterested, unmotivated, uninspired. They walk into that environment and they sit there for half an hour. And then we come in with this, yay, we're going to say, we're going to bring your health back to normal. We're so excited to help you. That was lost. So we want to maintain that momentum that we created in the first visit. When they come back for the report of findings, I want you to make a promise to yourself that your new patient doesn't wait to start the report of findings any longer than 5 minutes. 5 minutes is even a long time. It's really more ideal to just go right from the start. So they walk in, they get a really nice reception greeting, but not a happy, bubbly one. It's more of a, John, it's great to see you today. The doctor's been expecting you. Mary, thanks so much for coming with John. We really appreciate you being here. Let me let the doctor know that you're here. And so then they have a seat, and within just 1 minute, the CA gets back up. The doctor will see you now and escorts them back to the private room where the report of findings is going to begin in just a couple minutes. And then we're ready to go, right? That's how it should be when we are really serious about creating value and retention through the report of findings, okay? So next week, we'll get into our next section, which is going to be greeting the patient and the spouse. So I'll show you how to prepare for that and how to get ready for it. But that wraps up our section for today. Although, let me jump back over to here. Actually, I can stop that. And I want to jump over to the website because I've got some stuff here I want to show you on the website. So let me just, where'd you go? Let's see. I guess I can do it this way. Oh, no, I had it right the first time. Okay, sorry. Bear with me. I'm just moving a couple things around here. Good. And there we go. Okay. So, so on the website, I want to show you this because, so technically our scheduled release of the new materials for this module would have started on Saturday when we do our Saturday seminar. So if you go to the homepage today, you're actually not going to see the new materials up yet because they'll be coming up later. This is still the last section of our previous module. But to get to the new materials, which are now active, just simply go into training and go into modules, and we're in module 3. So click on module 3, and here you'll see the new materials. Actually, this one, the weekly topics, you can disregard that because that's from last year. But all these materials are the ones we want to go through because they're current for this module. And in here is a full-length report of findings video for you. So you can actually watch that full length and see all the different steps. You don't have to wait for us to complete the module to get the materials. One of the beautiful things about DC trainings, it's all right there at your fingertips, ready to go. But for today, I'm going to show you these three materials because in here, as I said, we have the report of findings outline. This is what you're going to use after each one of your report of findings while you're training yourself and or your CAs, so that you can go back and look and just make sure that you hit all the high points for each one of the sections in terms of explaining the results to your patient. So this is a great training tool, very valuable. This is the report of findings checklist. So this covers day 1 and day 2 for your new patient. And as I said, this one, you actually want to have the patient's name on it and the date of each of the first 2 visits. And you'll just check that off as for each one of the steps to make sure everything was completed. And then it goes in the patient's file and it just stays there, and you know that you covered all your bases. Now, for those of you who have practices that are running more on autopilot, where maybe you're not so engaged with each one of the, you're not the one doing the report of findings, you're not actually doing, you're having an associate doctor introduce your CAs, right? I know there's some of the high level practices here. So for those of you who are doing that, this report of findings checklist, I'll put myself in that position for just a second. Let's say I have an associate doctor and my CAs and they're doing the whole sequence. I actually wasn't even part of it. I was going out of town. This report of findings checklist goes in my box after each report of findings, so I can see that the steps were checked off, and I can look at that in a moment's notice, or just at a glance, I'll know that everything was done correctly on day 1. There was a fee that was collected, the length of the visit on day 1. I mean, it's all detailed there for the CA and the doctor. So both people, both players in the sequence are held accountable. And then when they're back for day 2, was everything prepared correctly in terms of preparing for the report of findings? Did the CA or doctor follow the steps for beginning the report of findings and the recommendations and finishing the report of findings at the front desk? Was everything scheduled? So this is a very, very important document for you to use, especially for those of you who want an autopilot type practice that just runs on autopilot, whether you're there or not. So that's there for you. And then this is what I wanted to show you here. This is, if you think back to that picture of myself and Carla looking at the file before the report of findings, it starts with, hi, my CA, of course. Hi, doctor, I'm ready for our patient's report of findings. And he came with his wife, Mary. Okay, great. Do you have everything you need in his file? Yes, according to his file, John has had low back pain for 2 years, headaches for 10 years, and lifelong allergies. He also has a subluxation at C6 with a reverse cervical curve and disc narrowing. He also has a lumbar subluxation at L4, which has advanced to show bone spurs. Well, thank you. What's our goal for this patient? To start an unmodified care plan today for the first 12 months, agree to lifelong supportive care, and choose either monthly payments or a full prepayment. I'll also ask for Mary, that's the spouse, to support him through his care plan. Good job. I'll introduce you so you can get started. I'm ready. Okay, and then the doctor and the CA enter the room to greet the patient and the spouse. So, and these are the forms that you take in. Those are listed there. But that's the summary of those materials. And again, you can watch the full-length video as well, which is a 28-minute video that covers the entire length of the report of findings. So you can watch that as well. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. So it's been a great time with you. We just kicked off the module. Everything's looking good. We've got our first week, and we'll continue now for another 8 weeks and make sure that we get all the information for you. And again, just want to say thank you for being part of DC Trainings. Very exciting. And I like this format in the sense that rather than being a little bit redundant by having a live seminar and then 8 weeks of materials that are essentially the same thing, we're going to just kick off this module and just jump right in. But as always, anytime along the way, if you have questions, email us at dctrainings@gmail.com or join the webinar, raise your hand, type in a question. I want to make sure that there's no questions that go unanswered for you, because when you don't have those questions answered, obviously that's going to hold you back from reaching your goals, which ultimately affects the results for your patients. So thank you so much. It's great to be with you today, and I will talk to you next week.
If you would like to become a member of DC Trainings, be sure to head on over to dctrainings.com to get started today.